Today, I have a pretty hot take for you guys, and that is, you don't need NMM or non-metallic metal. Now, before I get too into that, I'm putting this putty here on our model so that I can spray the base in copper. Last time we put a bunch of speed paint on this guy, just got all the messy work done on the actual knight himself, but now we're just moving back to the base and putting on some touch-up work. So by the end of this video, he will be mostly finished. We've probably got one more session to go, so 6 sessions total, I think, to finish him. So thanks again for painting along with me, but without further ado, here's my take on why true metallic metal probably wins out against non-metallic metal most of the time. So true metallic metal, or TMM, uses actual metallic paints with mica flakes in the pigment. So these are paints that reflect light for you, so the shine is actually real rather than painted on. And that approach has roots in mini painting and wargaming, all the way back through the 90s and stuff like that. And the advantage to that is ease of use and realism. You don't have to fake any reflections. The light is actually doing the work for you. But the drawback is that metallics rely on their environment. So under dim and flat lighting, they really lose a lot of contrast. Non-metallic metal, or NMM, skips the metallic paint entirely. So instead we're using regular acrylics, flat colors like gray, brown, yellow, or blue to simulate reflection through sharp contrast, edge highlights, and value placements. So this is a technique that comes from regular traditional art traditions. So Renaissance masters like Leonardo da Vinci or Caravaggio, they were the ones that painted light and shadow with extreme contrast to make objects look reflective. And there are a lot of great painters nowadays that do the same thing in more polished and dramatic ways. But the big advantage there to NMM is control. You get to decide exactly where the reflections go, so the effect works in any light source. The downside to that is that it's much harder to pull off and requires a very strong grasp of color theory and light logic. So to understand why these techniques work differently, we need to kind of explain some color theory. So in TMM, the contrast comes from the real reflections in the metallic flakes, like I just said. But to push that further, there needs to be solid value control, using washes, glazes, or highlights to deepen shadows and push edges that are already there that you can already see from real reflections. On the NMM side, the painter needs to invent those reflections. So it's all about a value range by placing your near black shadows directly next to near white highlights to show huge ranges in value. So the reason why NMM often uses pure white for highlights and nearly black shadows is exactly that. Like, it has the biggest value jump and it really screws with our minds, I guess you could say. So for gold NMM, you're going to usually see warm yellows mixed with browns or purple to kind of create big, thick depth, really giant, big transitions that just look really good from a distance. But how do you know what style you should choose? Well, it really depends on the scale, the lighting, and how you want your piece to be viewed. So here's my perspective. On smaller miniatures, especially like gaming pieces that don't sit under really strong light, NMM is probably going to be better. Just because you're painting the reflections, the metal coloring is going to pop no matter what the lighting is. And so if you're, say, downstairs in so-and-so's basement playing a game of Warhammer 40K, you don't have control over the lighting. It's probably a bad light source, like, let's be honest. But because you painted the reflections on, it doesn't matter. You will be able to see that it's supposed to read as metallic. TMM on those tiny surfaces just really reads flat because there's not enough light to give it a true meaning and a true sense of scale, right? It can't reflect like it would on a blade if the blade is only like 1 centimeter in length. It's just not going to do anything. So on larger centerpieces or busts, like the types of things that I like to make, I generally find that TMM is way more practical. The bigger surface area lets metallic flakes like really shimmer and shine, and viewers can see that natural light bouncing as they move around the piece or as they pick up the piece and hold it, or maybe see it on the shelf or move around from different areas, or get natural lighting on it, say if it's in a display case in your home. And that dynamic quality is something that non-metallic metal doesn't really reproduce. So here's the catch, okay? Online, a lot of painters lean heavily towards non-metallic metal. This is also in part because of the whole minis thing, but also what you may not have noticed is that cameras flatten out metallics. In person, the true metallic metal look is generally going to be really stunning, but on social media, it often comes across as muted or patchy because of the way the camera shutters work or the videography that the photos or videos are taken with. NMM or non-metallic metal with the painted on contrast is always going to look consistent and dramatic in every photo that you see. So at the end of the day, it's not really about which is better, but it's about where your work will be seen. So on Instagram or in a painting competition, for example, non-metallic metal is going to steal the show because you can put the light exactly the way you want it, but on, a display cabinet or to a general collector where they can control the light source, true metallic metal will often look absolutely incredible. And I gotta reiterate, this doesn't mean that we are just slapping on a base coat of true metallic metal paint straight out of the pot and calling it a day. We can kind of play with these light values still. We can create some contrast similar to what I've done on this axe blade here that you can see in the background, but it's going to move. It's going to be dynamic as maybe part of a diorama or a bigger display piece. So my rule of thumb, if you're going to be picking the model up, moving it around, playing with it, probably non-metallic metal is going to look a little bit better. If you're actually going to just let this model sit on the cabinet, it's going to have an LED light above it, or you know where the light's coming from, like just through a window or something like that. True metallic metal is probably going to be your best bet in that case. So one uses real shine, the other one simulates it. Both of them are rooted in real art history. They have their uses, they have strengths and weaknesses, and both, especially when put together sometimes, can make your minis look amazing as long as you're using them in the right context. So I would love to know, what do you actually think? Do you prefer the bold clarity of non-metallic metal, or do you prefer the natural shimmer of true metallic metal? Just drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you found this breakdown kind of helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more painting deep dives as we continue these models. Our goal here is always to just get more painting done. So it doesn't matter what the painting style is necessarily. It's just that we're actually getting something done. So perfection is the enemy of progress, and I'd love to see you at the painting table in the next one.